The Earth Defense Fleet stood ready, its massive ships floating in the dark void of space, waiting for the call to action. The hum of the engines vibrated through the steel walls of the flagship, the Vigilant, a massive Titan-class warship. Inside, the crew was at their posts, but there was a tension in the air that hadn't been there before. It had been years since Earth had faced any real threat, but the enemy was coming, and they would not be easy to defeat. On the bridge, Captain Erin Torres stood in front of the view screen, her eyes fixed on the stars. She was a seasoned leader, having led countless missions, but today felt different. Today, humanity was facing a threat it had never encountered. The Zolvans were coming. They were a ruthless alien species, feared across the galaxy for their unstoppable fleet and advanced technology. They had already destroyed several worlds, and Earth was next. The crew worked quietly, preparing the ship for battle. Torres turned to her second-in-command, Lieutenant John Marshall, who was reviewing the latest intelligence. His face was grim as he spoke. "Captain, we've intercepted another message from the Zolvans. It's a warning. And a threat." He paused, his voice low. "They say they will destroy us. They say our doom is inevitable." Tara's jaw tightened. She had known the Zolvans were ruthless, but hearing their message made the reality of the situation hit harder. "I don't believe in doom," she said quietly. "We fought too hard to let some aliens take us down." Marshall nodded but didn't look convinced. He had been in the fleet long enough to know how dangerous the Zolvans were. But he also knew that Earth's fleet was powerful in its own right, and they had one thing the Zolvans didn't: the will to fight. As the crew continued to prepare, Torres walked to the command console and stared at the holographic map of the galaxy. The Zolvan fleet was already on the move, and they were fast. They had been traveling through deep space for weeks, and now they were close, too close. Earth's fleet had no time to waste. The enemy would be here within hours. Torres clenched her fists, her mind racing. There was no time to waste. The fleet had to move. "Get me Admiral Henson," she ordered. Minutes later, the face of Admiral Henson appeared on the view screen. His expression was stern, but there was a flicker of concern in his eyes. He had led Earth's fleet through countless battles, but this was something different. The Zolvans were not like any enemy they had ever faced before. "Captain Torres," he said, his voice calm but serious. "I trust you're ready for what's coming." "We have no choice," Torres replied. "We fight. We hold the line. No retreat." "Understood. But remember, this is not just about winning a battle. It's about survival. The Zolvans will stop at nothing to destroy us. You must prepare for the worst." Torres nodded. "We're ready, sir. The Vigilant is fully prepared. We'll make them regret underestimating us." Henson paused for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. "I hope you're right, Captain. If we lose, it's not just Earth that falls. It's the entire human race. You're our last line of defense." The line went dead, and Torres turned to her crew. The silence in the room was deafening. They all knew what was at stake. The fate of humanity rested in their hands. The crew worked quickly, checking and rechecking the ship's systems, ensuring that everything was in perfect working order. The Vigilant was the pride of Earth's fleet, a ship built for this moment. It was heavily armed and armored, its weapons designed to take down any threat. But even with all their firepower, the odds were stacked against them. The Zolvans had a fleet that outnumbered Earth's by far, and their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. "Captain, we've just detected a Zolvan scout ship," Marshall said, his voice tight. "It's headed in our direction." Torres didn't hesitate. "Prepare to engage." The crew sprang into action, the hum of energy filling the air as the ship's weapon systems powered up. The Vigilant was ready for a fight, and they would give it everything they had. But as they waited, Torres couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The Zolvans were smart, and they would not come unprepared. As the scout ship drew closer, Torres' fingers hovered over the controls. This would be the first real test of Earth's defenses. If they could defeat the scout, it would send a message to the Zolvans. Earth was not an easy target. But if they failed, it would be a sign that the Zolvans could destroy them easily. The Zolvan scout ship came into view, its sleek black hull a stark contrast against the stars. It was fast, almost impossible to track with human technology. But the Vigilant wasn't just any ship. It had the latest in tracking systems, and the crew was trained to use them. "Lock on target," Torres ordered. The weapons officer, a young ensign named Lily, quickly input the coordinates, and the ship's main cannons powered up. A bright blue beam shot out from the front of the ship, striking the Zolvan scout with deadly accuracy. The enemy ship exploded in a fiery ball of light, sending debris scattering into space. "Direct hit. They're down," Marshall reported. Torres let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. The scout ship was destroyed, but she knew this was just the beginning. The Zolvans would not be deterred by a single loss. They would be coming in full force, and Earth's fleet had to be ready. "All crew to battle stations," Torres shouted. The alert sounded across the ship, and the crew moved with urgency, preparing for the fight of their lives. The Zolvans were coming, and they would soon learn that humanity would not go down without a fight. As the hours passed, the crew of the Vigilant remained on high alert, waiting for the inevitable. The tension was palpable, but there was also a sense of determination. They knew the odds, but they also knew something the Zolvans didn't. Humans had fought for everything they had. They had survived wars, famines, and disasters, and they would not let an alien race take that away. Torres stood at the front of the bridge, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead. The Zolvans were coming, but she wasn't afraid. Earth had always found a way to survive, and this time would be no different. She wasn't just fighting for Earth. She was fighting for every person who had ever lived on this planet. She was fighting for humanity's future. As the enemy fleet drew closer, the crew braced for the coming battle. They were ready. The Earth fleet stood tall, and the Zolvans would soon know their doom was coming. The battle began with a roar, as the first wave of Zolvan ships emerged from the dark of space. Their massive warships appeared like shadows, casting a cold terror over Earth's fleet. Commander Erin Torres stood at the front of the bridge, her eyes focused on the enemy ships filling the view screen. The time for talk was over. The Earth Defense Fleet was outnumbered, but they were not outmatched. "Captain, they're charging weapons," Lieutenant John Marshall shouted, his voice tight with urgency. "They're not wasting time." Torres nodded, her face hardening. "Brace for impact. All hands, prepare for battle." The ship shook as the first of the Zolvan lasers struck the Vigilant's shields, sending sparks flying across the control panels. The force of the blast rattled every crew member, but the shields held. The crew let out a collective breath, but they knew this was only the beginning. The Zolvans were relentless, and they had the firepower to wipe out Earth's fleet in a matter of hours. "Return fire," Torres ordered. "Target their lead ship." The Vigilant's guns rose to life as massive energy blasts shot out from the ship's cannons. The enemy ship shuddered under the attack, but it didn't break. The Zolvans had technology far superior to Earth's, and their ships were built to withstand devastating blows. "Direct hit, but no major damage," Marshall reported, his voice filled with frustration. "They're too strong." Torres clenched her fists, watching the battle unfold. Earth's fleet was giving its all, but the Zolvans weren't showing any signs of slowing down. Every shot from Earth's ships seemed to do little more than scratch the surface of the Zolvan ships. The enemy's weapons were powerful, and they were beginning to surround Earth's fleet. "Captain, they're flanking us." Ensign Lily, the weapons officer, shouted from the console. "We're being cornered." Tara's mind raced as the enemy closed in. If they didn't act fast, they would be trapped. But then, something unexpected happened. A signal came through, crackling over the comm system. It was Admiral Henson's voice, but it was different, urgent, yet calm. Captain, it's time to activate the secret weapon. We can't wait any longer. You have the green light. Torres blinked in surprise, her heart racing. She had forgotten about the weapon, humanity's last hope. It was a project that had been kept under wraps for years, known only to a select few. She had never seen it in action, but she trusted it was their only chance. Activate the weapon now, Torres commanded, her voice firm. A strange hum filled the air as the Vigilance power systems shifted. The entire ship seemed to shudder as energy from the ship's core was redirected. Then something incredible happened. A giant, shimmering energy shield appeared in front of the ship, glowing bright blue against the dark backdrop of space. It was massive, larger than anything Earth had ever built. "Shields are online," Marshall said, his voice full of awe. "It's holding, Captain." Tara's eyes widened as the Zolvans fired their next volley of laser blasts. But instead of punching through the Vigilance defenses, the blasts collided with the energy shield and vanished. The shield absorbed every shot, leaving Earth's ship untouched. The Zolvans stopped, momentarily stunned. For the first time in the battle, there was a flicker of uncertainty in their movements. They had never encountered anything like this. They had always been the ones with the superior technology, and now humanity had something they couldn't understand. "Direct all firepower to their ship's engines," Torres ordered. "We need to cripple their fleet." With the energy shield up and running, Earth's fleet had a fighting chance. The crew fired relentlessly, their shots striking true, hitting the enemy ship's engines and weapon systems. One by one, the Zolvan ships began to falter. They tried to fire back, but their weapons had no effect on Earth's shield. Panic began to spread among the enemy ranks. "Captain, they're retreating," Marshall reported, disbelief in his voice. "They're pulling back." The crew cheered, but Torres remained focused. The enemy wasn't defeated yet, just retreating temporarily. This was their chance to strike, but it wouldn't be easy. The Zolvans would regroup and come back stronger. "Don't let up," Torres ordered. "We hold them here. Prepare for the next wave." As the Zolvan ships retreated into the shadows of space, the crew of the Vigilant took a moment to catch their breath. They had proven that Earth was not a helpless target, that humanity had the strength to fight back. But the battle was far from over. The Zolvans would not give up so easily. Torres watched the empty space where the Zolvans had been, her mind racing. This was only the beginning. The Zolvans had seen Earth's secret weapon, and now they would prepare for their counterattack. Earth had survived the first wave, but the real fight was just getting started. The fleet would have to be ready, and Torres would lead them through whatever came next. The battle had only just begun, but Commander Aaron Torres knew that Earth's fleet could not keep relying on the energy shield forever. The Zolvans would adapt, and they would come back stronger. They had to push forward, using every advantage they had, or Earth's future would be lost. "We can't afford to wait," Torres muttered to herself as she stared at the battle unfolding on the view screen. The Zolvan fleet had retreated, but now they were regrouping, preparing for their next attack. Earth's fleet was battered, but still standing strong. Yet, Torres could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on them all. The odds were still against them. "Captain, the Zolvans are back," Lieutenant John Marshall reported, his voice tight. "They're coming in fast. It looks like they upgraded their weapons." Torres nodded, her eyes narrowing. "We have to fight back. We've already shown them what we're made of, but we need more than that now. We need humanity's strength." The enemy ships began their approach, their weapons charging for another devastating assault. But Earth's fleet was ready. With the energy shield still holding strong, the fleet fired back, using their advanced weapons to target the Zolvans' weaker points. The battle raged on, but the Zolvans were learning fast. Their tactics became more precise, their shots more deadly. The Earth fleet was being pushed back. "We're losing ground, Captain," Ensign Lilly called out from the weapons console. "They're taking out our ships one by one." Torres felt the pressure building. They had the shield, they had the technology, but what they needed now was something more. She turned to her crew and made a decision. Tell the fleet to fight with everything they've got. This battle isn't just about ships or weapons. It's about the will to survive. It's about our spirit. We've survived this long because we refuse to back down, and we're not going to start now. There was a pause, and then Marshall spoke, his voice filled with resolve. We've all heard the stories. Humans don't give up. We're a species that has faced impossible odds before. We'll fight until the last breath. The crew nodded, understanding. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for everything humanity had ever built, for every person who had ever lived on Earth. This was more than a war. It was a fight for their future. As Earth's fleet regrouped, something incredible began to happen. The crew fought with renewed strength, their movements sharper, their resolve unshakable. It was as though the very spirit of humanity itself had awakened, driving them to push forward, no matter the cost. The energy shield, now fully powered, absorbed every Zorvan attack with ease. The enemy's confidence began to falter. They had never encountered an opponent like this before. Earth's fleet, though smaller and outnumbered, had something the Zorvans lacked, an unbreakable will. Captain, Marshall said, his voice filled with awe. The fleet is responding. They're coordinating their attacks like never before. We're turning the tide. Torres watched as Earth's fleet moved with precision, a seamless force of human determination. The Zorvans were starting to feel the pressure, their ships slowing down as their strategies failed. Earth's fleet, despite being outnumbered, was making a comeback. We've got them on the ropes, Torres said, a fierce pride swelling in her chest. Keep pushing. We're not stopping until they know we're not to be messed with. In the midst of the chaos, a small group of Earth ships, led by the Vigilant, broke through the Zorvan lines and began striking at the heart of the enemy fleet. With every hit, the Zorvans' confidence continued to crumble. On the ground, in cities across Earth, people watched the battle unfold on their screens. The news channels broadcasted live updates, and the world held its breath. They had already seen how hard their fleet was fighting, but now they saw something else: humanity's spirit. The people of Earth, from every corner of the globe, began to rally. They stood together, united, knowing that the fleet was out there fighting for them. From the smallest child to the oldest veteran, everyone knew what was at stake. The fight in space was theirs too. Back on the Vigilant, Torres felt a surge of energy. This wasn't just about defeating the enemy. It was about proving that humanity could not be crushed, no matter the odds. They had fought through wars, disasters, and everything in between. They had come from the brink of extinction and had built something extraordinary. And now, they would fight for it. This is it, Torres said, her voice steady and filled with purpose. We're not going to let them take our home. We're going to make them regret ever underestimating us. With that, the fleet launched into a final offensive. Every ship, every weapon, every crew member fought as one, their hearts beating as one. They pushed forward, the energy shield crackling with power, as it absorbed every attack from the enemy. The Zorvans, once so confident, began to panic. Their ships began to fall apart under the relentless assault. The tide had turned, and Earth was starting to win. Captain, we've got a clear shot at their flagship, Marshall reported, his voice full of excitement. One strike, and we could end this. Torres hesitated for only a moment. The enemy was strong, but now they were desperate. Earth's spirit was unstoppable. Fire everything we've got, she commanded. The fleet's weapons unleashed one final, devastating barrage. The energy blast ripped through the Zorvan flagship, sending it into a fiery explosion. The enemy's forces scattered, broken, and in disarray. Earth had done it. They had proven that no matter how impossible the odds, humanity would never back down. The battle was far from over, but Earth's fleet had struck a decisive blow. The Zorvans, once sure of their victory, were now reeling. Their flagship was destroyed, and their remaining ships were scattered, disorganized, and on the brink of retreat. Commander Erin Torres stood at the front of the bridge of the Vigilant, watching as the last remnants of the enemy fleet attempted to regroup, but their confidence was shattered. "Captain, the enemy is retreating," Lieutenant John Marshall said, his voice filled with disbelief. "It's like they're running for their lives." Torres didn't answer immediately. Her mind raced. The Zolvans were a powerful, fearsome species, and yet they were now fleeing in the face of a unified humanity. She had known they would fight hard, but she hadn't expected them to break so quickly. "We need to finish this," Torres said, her voice cold with determination. "We can't let them escape. They'll be back with reinforcements." The remaining Zolvan ships tried to flee into deep space, their engines firing at full power. But Earth's fleet wasn't giving them the chance. One by one, the remaining enemy ships fell to Earth's superior coordination and relentless attacks. With every explosion, Earth's fleet pushed forward, driving the Zolvans further into retreat. "Captain, we've got one last target," Ensign Lily reported, her voice tense. "The Zolvans' command ship. It's heavily damaged, but it's still intact. We need to destroy it to end this for good." Torres nodded, her eyes narrowed with focus. "Target the command ship. Let's finish this once and for all." With a loud roar, the Vigilant's cannons charged, and a blast of blue energy shot out, cutting through space like a lightning bolt. The blast struck the command ship square in the center, sending shockwaves rippling through the surrounding space. The Zolvan's command ship shuddered violently, sparks flying from its systems. "Direct hit, Captain," Marshall reported, his voice thick with excitement. "Their command ship is breaking apart." The remaining Zolvan fleet was in chaos. Without their command ship to direct them, their ships scattered, no longer fighting as a unified force. Earth's fleet quickly closed in, finishing off the remaining enemy ships one by one. On the bridge, the crew watched as the last of the Zolvans were obliterated. The vast emptiness of space was once again still. It was over. Earth had won. The room erupted in cheers, but Torres remained calm. She had seen too many battles to celebrate too soon. Even though Earth had won, the cost had been great. The fleet had lost ships, and many brave men and women had given their lives in the fight. But in the end, humanity had proven that no force in the universe could break their spirit. "Captain, we did it," Marshall said quietly, his voice filled with awe. "We beat them, against all odds." Torres nodded, her gaze still focused on the empty space where the enemy fleet had once been. "Yes, but we didn't just beat them because of our weapons. We beat them because we refused to give up. Humanity has always fought for survival, and today, we showed the galaxy that we will never back down." The comms crackled to life. It was Admiral Henson, his voice filled with pride. "Captain Torres, I'm proud of you and your crew. You've done the impossible. Earth's fleet has held strong, and humanity has won. The Zolvans won't be back for a long time." Torres stood straighter, feeling the weight of his words. She could hear the applause and cheers from the rest of the fleet. The sound of their victory was a sound that would echo through history. "Thank you, sir," Torres replied, her voice steady. "But this victory is not mine alone. It belongs to every man and woman in Earth's fleet, to every person who fought for our future, to humanity." As the Vigilant and the rest of the fleet drifted through the silence of space, Torres looked out at the stars, knowing that Earth had faced its greatest challenge and come through victorious. The Zolvans were defeated, but the lessons learned in this battle would live on. Humanity had proven something today. No matter how dark the times, no matter how overwhelming the odds, Earth would always stand tall. The enemy had underestimated humanity's will to survive, and now they knew Earth's spirit could never be broken. With the last of the Zolvan ships retreating into the depths of space, Earth's fleet stood victorious, its crew united by their triumph and ready for whatever the future would bring. The battle was over, but the story of Earth's survival would be told for generations. It was a story of strength, unity, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity.